I dreamed that it was me.
The world in which these horrors will be taking us today is one that we don't cover too often. It isn't really analog horror, but more so in the digital realm of horror. I can't even begin to describe the amount of recommendations I've gotten to check out the series Laceygames. If I'm being honest, I had no idea what that was when I first read it, and upon first glance, I still wasn't sure what I would be getting myself into. But when it comes to the age-of-old browser games, I am definitely no stranger. My penguin, who walked the streets of downtown Club Penguin, lived there for many years. Toontown, Poptropica, and hell, even Webasaurs had me in a consistent chokehold in my early internet years. So if this series is going to be attacking some of my core memories in that regard, I should probably prepare to be in for a torturous time. But let's not waste any time here, folks. If you haven't already, be sure to check out the original series before diving in on over here for us to brave these internet horrors as a group. Just to preface, there are a ton of videos that appear to be Laceygames related, but we are going to be covering the main 4 entries in the Laceygames playlist. But without further ado, let's put on our protective gear, who knows if Lacey is planning on jumping out of screens, and head into the disturbing rabbit hole of Laceygames.
But before I let you get too far, just wanted to say if you're new here and enjoy what you're watching, be sure to hit all those neat buttons down below as it really helps support the channel. And if you want to see more, be sure to follow us on Instagram and Letterboxd. Alright, now you can pass through.
Lacey's Wardrobe, Lost 2006 Flash Game. We open up on the menu screen for this little flash game, Lacey's Wardrobe. When we hit play, we read that Lacey has a busy day today, as in the morning she will attend a picnic in the park, then she must go shopping, and finally she has a date tonight with the cutest guy. Oh my. However, there is an issue. She doesn't know what to wear, so it's up to us to help her put together the best outfits for each situation. Sounds easy enough. We enter into the actual gameplay and can see Lacey pleasantly waiting for someone to put some clothes on her. And down below, we can see our first theme, Picnic in the Park. First, we select the hair, then the top. Not what I would have gone for, but that's fine. We finish dressing her up with her bottoms, shoes, and even an accessory to tie it all together. Sure enough, we have successfully made it to our picnic. Is she just planning on eating alone? Unfortunately, I took a closer look and realized she may only think she is alone. Deep within the bushes, we see this really creepy face, and for a brief flash, text that reads, "I love you, Lacey," appears on screen. Uh-oh. We then cut to our next theme, shopping mall, and our music sounds a bit off. As we get her dressed, our music ends up cutting out with the sound of a phone ringing. When the phone gets picked up, whoever is on the other end definitely seems like a well-rounded individual.
Lacey, did you see my text, Lacey?
We may need more than just a restraining order, Lacey. When we return to the wardrobe screen, we can immediately spot a few unfortunate changes. Our creep is now in our window just peeking in, and I hate him. Our music also somehow has gotten even more frightening, not to mention our buddy's heavy breathing. Thankfully, we then head to the mall, and it doesn't seem like this dude is around. However, things don't stay normal for very long, as Lacey essentially pulls a Sue Storm and vanishes, except her clothes can still be seen. We also get a message at the top just saying, "Please help." Our screen then cuts to black, and our text then changes into, "He's going to kill me." If the stakes weren't high before, they really are now. We return to our wardrobe, and there isn't a theme, except we knew that she had a date tonight. We pick her hair, and then when we go to the tops page, one of the options just says there's a gift on your doorstep. When we select it, this heart-shaped box appears, and when it slowly opens, we can see what looks like some type of bloody remains. All throughout, we continually hear this knocking sound in the background, and then the phone rings. When we pick it up, it sounds like this stalker is here right now, and he isn't very happy. Trying to ignore that, we go back to dressing her up, and more text then appears where it seems like Lacey is begging that we don't make her go outside. Sure enough, barely a second later, she is dressed up and put outside, and our text at the top just says, "What have you done?" What happens next is then quite shocking, and quite brutal. We can hear Lacey's cries in the background as we periodically flash to footage to show that our stalker has chopped her up. Messed up stuff. And it doesn't get any better, folks, as our next scene is about to make it a whole lot worse. The last thing we see very briefly is the main menu again for Lacey's wardrobe before this tape ends. This was a lot more intense and haunting than I was expecting it to be. The reveal that our stalker literally ate Lacey is a really disturbing outcome, especially after she was begging not to go outside, as if she knew what was going to happen. Is this an experience she has forever lived? It did state at the beginning she has a date tonight, so I wonder if this whole thing is supposed to play out this way. This immediately started giving me Doki Doki vibes, and I don't know how that makes me feel right now if I'm being honest. Disturbing secret ending found in 2007 Flash game, Lacey's Diner. This entry seems to be set up a little differently than the last one. For starters, we now have some text to represent whoever is playing this game, and showing off the supposed disturbing ending. The person claims that they are going to show us a very weird secret ending they found in one of the old Lacey Flash games. As we load into the main menu, they claim that they found the game on a Flash archive site and felt a bit nostalgic for it. However, they ended up coming across an ending they had never seen. We head on into the game and see that this game is all about operating Lacey's new diner, and it's up to us to add the correct ingredients into the bowl and serve the customers, all within a decent time, of course. I know this all too well. The 3-minute timer is set, and our player claims that the timer is way too much time, to the point of making the game too easy, and more just for kids. Our footage gets sped up as the player wants to show us what happens when the timer gets a bit too close to 0. There's now about 45 seconds left on the clock, and we only now start putting the dish together. And once we get to the 10-second mark, things start to really take a turn. Thankfully, we get the dish done on time to serve, presenting us with this good job screen. But it's now time to serve them to the customers. The player tells us that not running out of time at any point allows the game to just play like normal as the food gets served. The player goes through and gives everybody their food, and we learn that we do this for about 3 more in-game days before we get to the end. But we are then met with the end screen and learn that all the customers have been satisfied, and we've earned lots of cash. However, the next 3 days just involve varying recipes, so our player decides to skip ahead to show us this quote-unquote alternative route. We quickly cut to what I can only imagine is one of the ending screens, with us being congratulated as Lacey's Diner is one of the best in the world. However, we then return back to the kitchen, and the plan is to actually let the time fully run out. Now once we get past the 8-second mark is when the screen begins to go haywire, and when we completely run out of time, well, you'll see. The quick frame we are shown is quite the graphic one, where it looks like Lacey has taken the failure of the diner extra hard to say the least. When we return, there are no more customers as it says we took too long, and we are then taken to a screen where Lacey looks sad and it says our customers went somewhere else to eat, but there is always tomorrow. The screen cuts to black, and when we open back up, it looks like we are taken to outside the diner, and it looks like Lacey herself is starting to provide some thoughts as she walks home. This is all I have, and the customers are hungry and unforgiving. If I fail, I see no other option, other than, in a way YouTube will deem acceptable, ending it all. Our player then returns to say that yeah, this game is straight up not for children, and apparently it all gets worse on the 2nd day. And sure enough, we are brought back into the kitchen, letting the timer run out. As it gets closer to 0, we can see Lacey and our window behind us disappear completely. And sure enough, good things don't happen when we run out of time. We even get some brief flashes of text, where some is able to be read, and some my eyes just can't make out. While it was still twitching, for memories are no substitute. Part of the ingrained paranoia was owed directly to the fact that they used to teach kids such perverse little bizarre lies that they passed off as the truth. Again, we see that we have no customers as they have left once again, and the end screen goes a bit off the rails. But damn, I bet a lot of us can relate to her crash out. Why can't these fucking bastards just wait 3 minutes for their fucking food? I am trying my hardest and yet I'm almost running out of my money to survive. This isn't fair. It isn't fair at all. It isn't fair. I hate all of them. I hate them. I hate them. We even get met with a more disturbing look at this other girl, unless this isn't a different girl, just Lacey looking a bit different. Lacey even goes so far as to make quite the threat. Tomorrow, I'm going to give them something to eat, alright? They'll face what they did to me. Our next scene brings us back to the kitchen, and a lot of our ingredients are interesting to say the least. We go through them one by one, and each one seems to unfortunately relate to Lacey's history in some way or another. Do I even want to know? We start off with cigarette butts, and we are shown what looks to be a damaged lung, and an old poster telling kids not to smoke. But the text tells a much more tragic tale. These moments were hard to forget because they were superglued from my heels to my thighs, and not even the strongest bird beak couldn't pick it off. The smoke tinted me in gray forever, and it made me tear up so much I almost cried in front of him once. Never again. It appears that we're going to be getting some more tidbits of info on Lacey's backstory here, and I'm sure it is going to just keep getting worse. Next up on the ingredient list is a dead cockroach, and the text we read says, "First, they dominated the ceiling of my room, but then I started to see them everywhere. Bugs and bites and dirt and ash and vomit where they shouldn't have been. They were all cloudy but crisp and very jumpy, and I wanted to suck it all inside of me like a reverse frog dissection and end it all for once." Next up is adult content. Face sucked by the static. The grains tickled Uncle's eyes with pleasure. He was the same as me but didn't want to admit it. He lived in a world of his own where he was desirable and sensual, and he got so used to his lies that he believed what the computer would whisper into his ear. I definitely don't like where this is going. Next up on the list is meth, and this time instead of text, it just looks like we get the back of a prescription bottle, and on the side, it's possible these are supposed to be meth eyes. Next up on our list is just some fun party balloons, and the text here is pretty fucking nasty, so if you want to read it, well, have at it. Next on the recipe is broken glass, to which we get some images of glass safety tips and a lot of bloody glass. So much for safety. But at the top, all we read is tip of your fingers. It first breaches your skin layers getting underneath your nail, slowly but steadily into your blood vessels. It loves to feel all your fat swirling around it as it rips through your muscle and touches the very core of your bones. Then we get to our last and final ingredient, this distorted image of this man. And when the screen goes black, we see at the bottom the word uncle cut off, and are shown this brief video of him turning and looking directly at us. But we have successfully completed our dish. I call it the Nasty Patty, and it's censored, obviously, for public health concerns. We very briefly get a frame of Lacey looking like her normal self, telling us it's time to serve the customers. But our dining scene has definitely changed a bit. Our people are a lot more disturbing. This guy seems to already have a lot going on. But when we serve them the food, they enjoy it and leave. Our next two customers are somehow even more frightening to look at. And I'm sorry, Lacey, but it appears that now the establishment has been closed due to sanitary violations. At least she went out with a bang. We see as Lacey stands in front of the diner, smoking a cigarette, looking like all is over. She says to herself, "This is it then," and we see as it looks like a body lays on the ground in the alley. What is really strange, however, is we get a very quick image flash of this girl sitting at her computer desk, and it looks like all the wires and cables are stabbed into her and going back into the computer. Then another very quick flash showing a close-up of her arm, clearly seeing the cables piercing in. The last thing we are met with is the menu screen for Lacey's diner, and our player is back to say that they believe the Laceygames are not as innocent as they seem. Yeah, you think? They ask for people to be on the lookout for more of these types of games on archive sites, considering a lot of them are lost media at this point. But that's the end of our journey through Lacey's diner at least, and what a way to set the stage and tone. The first tape did a good job at showing you just how dark and disturbing the series was going to go, but this one takes it to a whole other level. This one is especially scary because nothing so far has been that supernatural or unbelievable. The first entry was essentially about Lacey trying to go about her day, but a stalker comes around and then kills her, then cannibalizes her. Then this tape we get to learn all about the tragic past of hers, and it's one a lot of people have lived unfortunately. I actually have an early theory as to what this all could possibly be. Sorta like Samara from The Ring. I wonder if Lacey had endured such a traumatic childhood and past that she essentially created these cursed games that told her story. We do see these quick frames of that girl being literally hooked up to the computer. Do I think that's literally what's happening? Probably not, but I wouldn't be surprised if we go into a similar direction. But for now, let's just headcanon that Lacey got the good ending, and her diner became the best in the world. Lacey's Pet Shop, 2007 Flash game. This tape starts off a little bit differently from the previous ones. It appears that we are in some type of Lacey media player, and we end up playing an audio file labeled Grace01, and it sounds like an audio interview for a thesis paper, and whoever is being interviewed doesn't seem like they want whatever info they are about to spill being too out in the open. We end up cutting to this Laceygames webpage, and our person being interviewed goes on to say that they have no affiliation with Laceygames.com, and that lies are being spread across the internet. However, when the web page gets scrolled down, we see text that claims that the two people in the photo are Rocio and Grace, the founders of this game studio. So somebody's lying here. We then get to see some screenshots from a forum page where people, mostly parents, are posting about Lacey's diner and how messed up it actually is. Grace then seems to back down on that no affiliation claim, saying that whatever the parents are complaining about wasn't them. In fact, they weren't aware of anything. What's interesting is in the screenshot here from one of Lacey's games, we can see that a child sent in a drawing, to which Lacey essentially rips it to shreds, calling it utter fucking trash. Goddamn Lacey. Harsh critic. We end up returning to our media player, and Grace begins to talk about one of the games that they did actually try and play, due to the amount of parents that were bringing it up. Unsurprisingly enough, however, once Grace played the game, they knew why people were freaking out so much, and the game in question is none other than Lacey's Pet Shop, to which we are then brought to the home screen of this new game. Sorta like this diner, Lacey now runs one of the most famous pet shops in town. All we have to do is listen to the client's animal demands, and use the items to customize them so that they are all ready. Seems a little strange, but let's see how this works. The first customer walks in and just wants your typical puppy, so we clean this one up and hand them off to their new owner. Things aren't too off-putting until we get to our fourth customer, who says they want a rare French hamster with a very long neck. Emphasis on long. That is when we take these horrifying looking tools and stretch out the poor fellow's neck. Not just once, but twice. This little guy is not having a good time. The next whack job to walk in here wants a turtle with teeth so that it can smile at him. Freak. And sure enough, we end up creating this frightening abomination. You seem a little too happy about this. The last guy who ends up coming in here asks for a bunny, except he doesn't want the ears, or the tails, or the legs. So he wants a stub.
Give me a cheese with nut.
Lacey's character model becomes a lot more stressed when asked to take these scissors to the bunny. Sure enough, our poor little guy is rendered to a stump. But then when Lacey calls in the next customer, something really odd occurs. Why was that the bad dog? I'm not too sure. I mean, yeah, it had a pretty horrific face, but I wonder what prompted their appearance. We end up getting a few more distorted visuals before we are met with this ominous loading screen with text that just reads, "Nightmares come and nightmares go. I yearn for them again and again. Pull my hair and my nails off. Pretend I was never real. What happens through the night never did." Our next segment then seems to take us somewhere else entirely, with this horror game setting, and text at the bottom asking, "Where am I?" Our character attempts to go straight into the house, but the cat is blocking the path. We end up trying to speak to the cat, but as to be expected, they don't plan on letting us pass. Apparently, for the cat, this day has been pretty bad. I feel ya. But he claims that as they were chasing a bird, the bird ended up stealing its skin. Needless to say, this guy does not feel like helping out. But in a gracious turn of events, we end up trying to find the cat's skin. And sure enough, after we go left, we find the skin in the mouth of this bird. We shoo the bird off and we bring the skin back to the cat. The skin still doesn't really look right, but if it makes him happy and lets us in the house, who can complain? We end up going inside the house. Our player comments on how the pictures on the wall all stare at us as we enter. We try to head upstairs, but the door is locked, so our next course of action is to head left, and it looks like a family of pigs eating at the table. We get a closer look, and sure enough, these pigs are quite horrific to look at, but we briefly get a chunk of text that flashes on screen. "I've always known what you are. From the moment you first touched me to when I found myself stepping over remains of your skin glued to the floor. You have no regards. I had none either. You squealed like a pig, just like a pig. This had been my childhood dream, the one you took from me. I collected all those bruises for years. My spine hurt as if a needle went through each segment. Once I got used to it, I didn't think about it anymore. But you made me think about it forever when you made that mistake. You made a mistake." The phrase, "you took my angel away," then gets repeated down off the screen. When we return to the dinner table, it now has no pigs at it. Thank God. And this time, we decide it's time to go right. And this room seems like a normal living room, besides the big cage in the corner. We comment on the painting, even saying that we feel like crawling inside of it. And would you look at that? It's what we do. And it turns out we have been playing as Lacey all along. Who could have guessed? Lacey begins to comment on our current state, about how the pain just hurts so comfortable. But in what she herself refers to as her edgy moment, she finds a key, and this is likely the key that takes us through that door upstairs. When we enter back in the hallway, there's a brief moment where all the pictures on the wall are different, before snapping back to normal. But at that moment, every picture looked to be of the same dog with censored eyes. Sure enough, the key unlocks the door, and we head inside. However, it brings us into another hallway, and the text below really has me not looking forward to this. "Uncle, have you seen puddles anywhere? I can't find her. I checked everywhere. We head into the bathroom to check there first, and we comment how while this all looks like blood, it's actually just lemonade. We end up taking a look at ourselves in the mirror, and we just look like normal old Lacey, until we cut to this footage that looks to be that girl from before, hooked up to all the wires, and it looks like she's potentially trying to tear them out. We end up getting some more texts, but I definitely wasn't able to make out all of it. It sucks and it smells. Oh, I get it now. Someone melted here. Pulverized remains enter my pores, blood, and skin. I suck it all. My legs swell and turn yellow. The mirror then gets completely taken over by this figure, and text appears that looks to be talking directly to the player, asking if we enjoy playing on the computer, and that she has made lots of games for us, but with none of those lies. The word lies is blanked out, but she ends up saying it in the mirror. When we return to When we return to the bathroom setting, the text goes back. The text "go back" gets repeated a bunch, and so we end up returning to the hallway. The next stop is room 1, and when we head in there, it's immediately clear something is under this bed. It starts to crawl out towards us, as this strange audio plays in the back. The next segment we end up heading to takes us into this dark room, where all we can see is out this window. We see text that just says, "I was thinking of getting a cat this time. I really, really want a cat." We then end up seeing a visualization of Lacey and her kitten. The next thing we read is about the stuff they do together, like get ice cream, to which Lacey comments about how they haven't eaten in days, and they can't just leave. Apparently, he is still under the bed, and he will look at me. We then are quickly flashed these photos of what looked to be a corpse, but we get more text that talks about going out shopping after all this is over. She will buy CDs of her favorite songs and whatnot. But then we hard cut to this haunting visual, and if it wasn't clear before, it's clear now that her uncle had truly taken things to a whole new, incomprehensible level when he messed with her dog. The vision starts to get grainy, and we end up back in the bedroom and heading back into the hall. Guess there is only one room left, and it says to click here to end it all. We end up in this room with very interesting looking walls, but more importantly, a box of matches right in front of us. Lacey asks if we should light ourselves on fire to wake up, and sure enough, that's what we end up doing. A bunch of various images and animations that appear on screen as Lacey makes it pretty obvious what she had done.
Where the body's sense becoming too visible on his skin. And his tongue is back. All of the giant pit neck.
We end up cutting to Lacey waking up and saying it was all a nightmare. Of course it was. I mean, it's not like I can see the body under your bed at all. We then finally return outside of the game entirely, and back to that media player listening to Grace. She ends up revealing that Rocio was hiding a lot from her, and so they ended up going their separate ways, and Grace isn't even sure if she is still alive. But then the last thing we end up seeing on this tape is certainly something to say the least. So far, Laceygames has been a really haunting experience. Definitely up there in some of the more disturbing works I've had the pleasure of checking out. The Disturbing Rabbit Hole of Laceygames.com. When we open up on this last entry, it's clear that the quality has taken a bit of a jump, as we watch a full animated Laceygames intro, a song we heard in the media player last entry. We are even introduced to some new characters. Besides Lacey, we also have Macy and Skate Girl J. The intro then begins to come to a close, and to end it off, it sounds like someone briefly screaming. We then end up pulling back to reveal we were watching this in the Lacey media player, and it appears that we are back to following Grace, who is with this other girl sitting next to her. Grace claims that the voice that was singing the intro was Rocio, and said that she would always do the voice for Lacey, even the singing, and apparently it stressed her out so bad, she would rip her hair out, hit herself on the head, and scream in the bathroom where everyone in the studio could hear. And apparently that is the sound we heard at the end of the intro. Real quick, I really like the style our conversation is being presented in. It's very unique and seems oddly fresh within a time that's already passed. It also seems to allow for our characters to sort of ham up the poses, since we only get one for a few frames. The other lady, who we will refer to as Char, asks why Grace never asks what was wrong with her. Grace just chalks it up to she was previously informed that Rocio was, in her own words, cuckoo. So this was all something she just expected. The two then end up on the main page for Laceygames, as it's learned Grace handed over the HTML files to Char, which Grace says was very kind of her considering Char lied about the whole thesis. But don't worry, this time it's for Char's cousin's thesis. However, on the homepage, we make our way to the info section, and again see the new characters Macy and Jay. Char comments about how Jay was always her favorite when she was a kid, to which Grace says Macy was hers, and that Jay gives her the creeps. Char asks why, and Grace explains that Rocio back in 2009 permanently killed off Jay, and apparently not in the same way Lacey gets killed in her games. Jay was permadead. Char is confused as to why she has no memory of this, but we move on pretty quickly and head straight into Jay's skating game. This plays out like your typical browser game. We control the skateboard and try to avoid the obstacles. This goes on for a bit. We skate on the rooftops, beat the levels. However, when we hit the bird, we are met with this screen with Macy helping us up. What a nice friend. A few attempts in, Char comes out for a brief moment to talk about how hard the game is. Just gotta lock in is all. Right when we are about to make it to the finish line of this next level, our whole screen ends up glitching, and we can see this list of numbers to our right. What do they mean? Don't ask me. Then once we are on level 3, things begin to go in a direction I was not expecting. Jay begins to go at supersonic speeds, almost a bit too fast, until the whole screen goes black, and nothing happens for a moment, until this odd checkered shape comes flying towards her. This can't be good. The next level we land on is pretty distorted compared to the last ones. The music is all over the place, the visuals are a bit glitchy, and once again, Jay turns into the speed demon, even more so than before it seems. Maybe look at all the stop signs you're speeding by. Sure enough, this ride ends in quite the disaster. We return to Grace and Char, who's reasonably disturbed by what we all just witnessed. We end up getting a very brief sinister frame where the only phrase I believe I can make out is, "a proper girl." Grace again claims that she wasn't aware of anything until the parents flooded her email. It's then learned that Rocio continued messing with the site after that, removing Jay from everything, and even deleting all the games relating to her. Except it said that Jay would then start to randomly appear in other places, to which we are met with quite this eerie segment.
Deleted, but she started showing up in other.
It's pretty easy to miss, but there's a quick flash of a screenshot containing a few forum threads, and these parents are not happy, for dumbass reasons. Apparently Jay isn't girly enough, too much of a tomboy, some even claiming it's completely taken over their own little girls with boyish interest. You know, foolishness. But then it looks like someone, likely Rocio, makes a response. Careful what you wish for. Seems we have our answer as to why Jay was killed off. But now it's time for us to get to our next game, Lacey's Makeup Parlor. This time, we have to use our creativity and imagination to give our clients makeup looks to die for. Everything seems to be playing out as per usual, other than this very brief frame talking about hiding undesirables with the power of illusion, until one of the clients seems to have a bit of an incident. Thankfully, our realistic hand is here to fix her up. Our next client ends up getting a worm crawling over her. Disgusting. So our hand comes in again and takes care of that little pest. But we get another quick frame, putting us in a morgue, with text that just reads, "Vanity doesn't die. You are not excused from vanity yet. You still can't be looking bad now. I can fix you." We even get an image, I'm thankful, is censored. Our next client then has some very interesting looking eyes, to say the least. Let's just close those up real quick. The next client takes a bit to show, but as it turns out, it's someone we have met before. Not a lot of this text is able to be made out, but what I could make out is the phrase, "You are going backwards to a child," and "death of rebirth," to which we are then met with Lacey, who lays on the floor, back in the morgue, and I have a feeling I know what's going on here. Lacey begins to panic, claiming she isn't here, and that she isn't here. This isn't happening. She then goes on to say she's just a client, she just needs makeup. Lacey then smiles, says that she can fix her, and then her whole environment changes from the morgue back to the makeup salon. Lacey has 100% deluded herself here. We even see when she looks at herself in the mirror, a brief flash of where she truly is. We start to work on Jay, but once we get to curl those eyelashes, things take yet another horrifying turn. Who knew curling eyelashes could be so dangerous? Our next scene then has us in the brutal reality, with Lacey holding up Jay's lifeless body as she tries to apply makeup, asking Jay just to stand still and collaborate, still fully immersed in her makeup salon delusion. She even goes on to say that if she maybe wore makeup and looked more feminine, this would not have happened. We get another brief frame with a lot of haunting images, with text that says "smile for me," and more that reads out, "I wanted to cry so hard I'd vomit. I smiled. I smiled because blank. Does it matter? I'm here for display, and you don't look pretty when you cry." Some of those words I just guessed. We then get quite the disturbing visual of Lacey continuing to apply makeup to Jay's decomposing face, and once it's done, it's like we finished helping a regular old client. Good job, Lacey. Grace and Char return, and our footage looks to have been completely corrupted, eyes everywhere in the background, and our footage of Grace and Char are all color-burned. Char asks why nothing was done to stop this, to which Grace just deflects the blame to Rocio's craziness that she didn't want to deal with. We then get this haunting video off to the side as Grace and Char talk a bit more, Char even recommending that they go and find Rocio, to which Grace immediately shuts the idea down. Char manages to convince Grace to look deeper into the situation, and they end up pulling up something else on the website, which I believe is the ending to Lacey's makeup parlor, and it appears to be a goodbye song performed by Lacey, and it appears to be a song dedicated to Jay. A sad one to be expected, but when it ends us off on a chaotic note. The last thing we see in this tape is one very brief final frame at the last second, with Jay in the back, and thanks to Pingu over here, we have an easy translation. She stepped into the empty room at the edge of the universe and calmly walked towards the single button on the wall, which, as she had been told by the gods above, could delete the existence of anyone she disliked. She thought long and hard of all the ugliest souls she had ever known. She made her decision and her finger met the button without any ceremony, but looking down at her feet, it was all with blood. She stood in shock. The blood tainted her very being. She had thought deletion to be clean and instant without realizing that death's the only deletion that exists, and there is no death without painful, unrelenting grief. And grief stared at her through mirrors forever, from the eyes of all she had ever thought to delete. It was a world catastrophe. At first I had no clue what this could be referring to, but thinking deeper, I believe it all has to do with how the parents reacted to Jay, and how Rocio decided to handle that. But now that we have finally reached the end of Laceygames, let's try and dig deeper to see what's possibly truly going on here. To start off in a more grounded sense, I believe that Rocio and Grace were decent friends, and they made these games together on this website. Grace may like to claim she has no affiliation, but we know that's BS. However, I think Rocio created these characters and world as a form of escapism. I think that Lacey may be a direct reflection of Rocio. We see pretty frequently the image of who I believe is Rocio getting swapped out with Lacey. Once the parents complain about Jay, however, Rocio went the darker route to solve this issue, sort of like that last block of text hints at. It sort of seems like Rocio thought that if these parents wanted Jay gone so bad, then they should face the reality of what that would entail, killing her, brutally, with her friends there to mourn and grieve. On the more mystical, supernatural side of things, I also think it's possible that Lacey in this world may be real somehow. I think those images we see of that girl hooked up to the computer is Rocio. We know she has been missing, or at least not heard from in a while. So maybe all this time Rocio has just been hooked up to this computer, trapping herself in her painful past that's been recreated by these browser games, and finding comfort in it. I'm not sure if this is technically the end of the main Laceygames entries, or if there are a bunch of smaller canon ones that I am unaware of at the moment. But as of this moment, Laceygames was really a blast. The style, story, and overall horrors were all a delight. It had a much more extensive lore than I could have guessed. I really did not expect, at least based on first glance, that this series would go in the direction it did. But it also makes perfect sense as to why it did. So many of us probably use these online kids games as ways to escape whatever troubles we were going through at any given time. And so to show off these real horrors in such an innocent, recognizable format is truly horrifying. And it helps when the series is not afraid to just show the ugliness of its subject matter. It definitely made all the tragic revelations with her uncle, and hell, really everything that went down, all the more sickening. But that'll probably be about it for this video. If you made it all the way to the end, I thank you all so much for watching. If you haven't already, be sure to check out the original series and creator, as they have a bunch of stuff on the channel that is definitely worth checking out. As always, be sure to keep leaving me recommendations down below, whether it be in the YouTube comments or the community Discord where we don't turn rabbits into rocks. But if you'll excuse me, I just found this new childhood game I used to play all the time, and I have to check it out.